Dang it. Well, today we're going to cover the most dreaded Windows problem of all, and that's the notorious automatic repair loop. I'm not sure why I haven't covered this one before, but better late than never. Stay tuned. Now, unfortunately, many people don't even try to fix a system that's in an automatic repair loop. Many technicians will just tell you that you need to reformat or reload Windows. However, some people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I'm here to tell you that that isn't true. They're just lazy. I'm sorry, but they are. Because the reality is many systems in an automatic repair loop can be fixed. But the problem is it's not easy. But it's definitely possible. So today, I'm going to show you my process of troubleshooting this issue. But first, I got to pay some bills. So check out today's sponsor. Are you still running Windows 11 unactivated because the license just costs too much? Then you should check out today's sponsor, VIP SCD Key, where you can get a valid Windows 11 license for around $20. Stop dealing with that stupid watermark and actually be able to change your desktop background with a valid license for Windows 11. Just go to the link in the description below and pick up a valid Windows 11 license key. During checkout, use the code CYBERCPU for a 25% discount. Once you have your key, go to your activation settings in Windows 11 and click the link that says Change Product Key. Enter the product key you just purchased and hit Activate. Now you don't have to deal with that stupid watermark. And check out the description for deals on not just Windows, but Office too. Now, on with the video. So when it comes to the automatic repair loop, the troubleshooting steps range from extremely easy to kind of advanced. So I highly recommend watching this entire video first before you attempt these steps. Now, when it comes to the automatic repair loop, it's impossible to say what exactly your problem is because there's lots of issues that can cause the automatic recovery to happen. Essentially, all automatic recovery is where your system goes when it can't boot Windows. So there's lots of things that could stop your system from being able to boot Windows. And you have to determine what those are in order to get out of the automatic recovery loop. Also, this video is going to assume that you're not having a hardware problem and your inability to boot Windows is a software issue. All of the standard troubleshooting steps related to hardware should be conducted before trying these steps. So, it would be a great idea to remove any hardware that's not necessary to boot into Windows, as well as running memtest86 to make sure that your memory is okay. But if you've done all that and you're convinced that your issue is a software problem, then let's jump on the system and get started. Okay, so here's the screen that most people are used to seeing when your PC did not start correctly. Like I said, essentially all automatic repair is it's the default location in which the bootloader sends you when Windows doesn't boot properly. It gives you an environment in order to troubleshoot why your system isn't booting into Windows. Believe it or not, automatic repair is actually a very useful tool, even though some people really don't want to see it. So the very first step, and I'm not even saying this is going to work for you, but it's the very first step I would try, is just pushing the restart button. There are certain circumstances where automatic repair could initiate and there actually isn't anything wrong. I'm not even kidding. I had a situation one time where a dog's tail was flapping against a computer, turning it on and off over and over again. And when my customer went to sit down, he was at the automatic repair screen. And then all we did to fix it was push the restart button. So it could happen. It's probably not gonna work, but you might as well at least give it a try. So I'm gonna hit restart and we're gonna see if this gets us into Windows, and if it doesn't, I will meet you back here in automatic repair. Okay, so obviously, as you can see, we're back into automatic repair. So clearly restarting it didn't work. And for the majority of people, that's not gonna work, but you have to at least try it because wouldn't you feel silly if you went through all these troubleshooting steps and there really wasn't a problem? So the next step that we're gonna do is we're gonna try to get the system to boot into safe mode. So since we weren't able to get it to boot to regular mode, maybe there's a driver conflict or something like that taking place. So to do that, all you gotta do is push the advanced options button. And then from here, you wanna go into troubleshoot. And then from troubleshoot, you wanna go into advanced options. Now, I have noticed sometimes these menu settings are a little bit different depending on the system itself, but it should be relatively the same. And then what you're gonna wanna find is you're gonna wanna find this setting right here where it says Startup Settings. You're gonna click on that, and then you're gonna go ahead and push the restart button. And this will allow you to enable safe mode. Now, this is either gonna work or it's going to push us right into automatic recovery. But we're gonna go ahead and give it a try. We're gonna hit the restart button, and I will see you at the next screen. Okay, so here we are at startup settings. So this is a good sign. We're at least to the next step. And then what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna push number 4. That's gonna be enable safe mode. You could probably do enable safe mode with networking, but for right now, we're gonna push number 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and push that now and let the system boot the rest of the way into Windows. Now there's a possibility that this isn't going to work for you. And if it does, you'll get thrown back to automatic repair. But in this situation, this one works. So we're gonna go ahead and show a few troubleshooting steps from within Windows that can help you figure out what's causing you to not be able to boot into regular mode. Okay, so if you successfully got into safe mode, then this is really good news. This means that whatever's causing your system not to boot is either a driver, a service, or a program starting up with Windows. The odds of you having to reload Windows at this point have gone down to just about 0. But it's going to take some troubleshooting to figure out why you can't boot Windows into regular mode. So let's jump on the system and we'll do some of that troubleshooting now. Go ahead and click on Start and type msconfig. And then from there, we're gonna open the system configuration. And this is an old program that dates, I think it dates all the way back to Windows 98. It might be Windows XP, but we've had it around for a while. Now, what you could do is you could just do diagnostic startup or even selective startup. Diagnostic startup only loads basic devices and services. So essentially it disables all third-party services and a lot of Microsoft services actually too. It only boots the absolute necessities. And it also goes through and disables a lot of the different startup items. Now, if you want to verify that that is a fact, you can actually right-click here, you can go into Task Manager, go into the startup options right here, and then you can disable different startup options from this point right here. But after you apply this, you can go ahead and restart your computer, and if it starts in regular Windows mode, then you can be pretty guaranteed that your problem was either a service or a startup item that was stopping you from booting Windows. But if that doesn't work, then alternatively what you can do, a program called Blue Screen View. Now, I already have this program downloaded onto the system, and obviously, if you're currently in safe mode, you're not gonna have access to the internet. So you're gonna need to find another system where you can download this program. But this is a really good program to have on your system ahead of time. So I would definitely grab this and throw it on your thumb drive. That's where I got mine. But if you click right here, if you launch this program, we're gonna see that we have a dump file right here that represents a crash. Now, ultimately, if your system isn't booting up, then it's probably blue screening every single time it tries to boot up. And it's going to leave a dump file for that blue screen. Now, as you can see here, my bug check string is driver IRQ not less or equal. Now, what I have found in almost 100% of cases that I see this specific bug check, it's bad memory. So if you're having this issue specifically, then I would go through and run memtest86 and check your memory. If you get any errors whatsoever, then replace your memory because you have a bad stick. So I'm not gonna go into detail on how to use memtest86, but it's pretty straightforward. Any errors, you have bad memory. But what you're gonna wanna look for is ultimately, you're hoping that this isn't a hardware problem and this is a software problem. So what you're gonna wanna do is you wanna go through this bug check file or this crash dump file, and you wanna go and look at some of the system files that are caused. Now in this one, you can see that myfault.sys is what actually led to this blue screen. Well, for people that have a keen eye, it's because that's a program called myfault. This is a program that initiates fake blue screens. And I used it only for the purpose of this video because I wanted a dump file to be able to show you guys how to use Blue Screen View. But there's probably going to be other files in here, and it could be a file related to a driver. It could be a video driver. It could even be a hard drive controller driver. So what you're gonna wanna do is go through here. If you can get into safe mode, then chances are this is just a simple driver problem. You can figure out what the bad driver is, uninstall it, boot into Windows, and install a fresh copy of that specific driver. Now, let's just assume this is a video driver. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna right-click on the Start menu, we're gonna go into Device Manager. And then from here, as you can see, we have a whole bunch of drivers that aren't loaded right now. And that's what we want. That's why we wanted safe mode. So what we're gonna do is go into the display adapter, and we're gonna look at, say it's our RTX 3060 that's actually causing the boot problems. All you'd have to do is right-click and hit Uninstall Device, then boot boot Windows into regular mode and install a new driver for that device. And you would have to go through whatever device you find inside of your bug check file in order to come to that conclusion. Okay, so from this point, we're gonna go ahead and close all the applications that we currently have running, but ultimately, it may not work. You may restart your computer and you may get right back into automatic recovery. And if that's the case for you, then let me jump back into automatic recovery and we'll move on to the next step. So here we are back into automatic repair. So we're gonna go ahead and click advanced options. And now, the next step that I'm going to recommend you try is something that I have spoke ill about many, many times before. And that is, we're gonna go ahead and try, we're gonna click on troubleshooting, we're gonna click on advanced, and we're gonna try startup repair. Now, I guarantee you it won't work. I mean, it might work for you. It has never once worked for me. But it doesn't hurt to try because ultimately you have nothing else to lose, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and click Startup Repair and we're gonna see what happens. Now, chances are Startup Repair is not gonna work. However, it's definitely worth trying. But I personally, like I said, have never had Startup Repair fix a system. That doesn't mean it won't. It just means that I haven't had any success with it in the past. But it's a quick process, so it's definitely worth at least trying. Unfortunately though, the next step probably isn't going to work either, but not because it never works, but because Microsoft disabled it. Prior to that, I had luck with this next method about 80% of the time recovering systems, but now it's mostly zero. And that step is System Restore. Unfortunately, since Microsoft disabled it in newer versions of Windows, the likelihood of getting any success from it is very low. But it's still worth trying, especially if you've turned it back on like I've recommended in the past. So let's jump back on the system and I'll show you how to use it. Okay, so here we are back at Startup Repair, and as always, Startup Repair could not repair your PC. Oh boy, what a surprise. Anyway, let's move on. We're gonna go ahead and click Advanced Options now, and then from Advanced Options, we're gonna click on Troubleshoot, and then from Troubleshoot, Advanced Options again. And from here, we're gonna click the button that says System Restore, and we're gonna hope that it's turned on. So we're gonna go ahead and click on System Restore, and from this point, it says, no restore points have been created on your system's drive. To create a new restore point, open system protection. Well, that's not really gonna help us now, is it? So this is what you're gonna see, unfortunately, because most systems have System Restore disabled because Microsoft has disabled it by default now. However, if for whatever reason you do have System Restore enabled on your system, just go ahead and restore the system to the last restore point, and chances are you're probably gonna get back into Windows. But unfortunately, that's not gonna be the case for me right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit cancel, and we're gonna be right back into the recovery console. The next step that we're looking at now is we're gonna try to actually repair the system. So from there, we're gonna click on Troubleshoot, we're gonna go to Advanced Options, and then we're gonna go into the command prompt here. And then from here, there's a few different things that you can try. For one, I would make sure that your C drive is actually accessible. This is probably one that you should have tried a little bit earlier. But if we go ahead and run a directory on our C drive, as you can see, I am at least getting files, right? So you wanna make sure that you have the Windows directory, you have your program files, your things of that nature that you know should be on your main primary drive. So if those files are there, then you know at least you have a C drive. If you go to run a directory and it says it can't run a directory or that the drive isn't formatted, well, then that's probably the reason why it's not booting into Windows, because there isn't a Windows to boot into. But either way, hopefully it comes back to you just like this. And if it does, go ahead and run check disks. We're gonna go chk dsk, then we're gonna go /f, /f, and then we're gonna tell it which drive we want it to check, and that's obviously gonna be the C drive. So we're gonna go ahead and hit that, and now it's gonna tell you it can't run because the volume is used by another process. It's probably because I'm actually on the drive right now, so we're gonna go ahead and hit no, and hit no, and we're gonna go back to the X drive again, and then type the same command again. and then it'll run fine from that point. So you want to make sure to run check disk from a different disk. That was a brain fart of my own, but go ahead and let this run through. Hopefully this fixes whatever issue you're having and your system will boot normally. But it's going to take it a minute to get through this section, and there we are. Now we're done. So from this point, we're not actually done yet. Now some people may ask me why I didn't use the /R, which you can do. /R is essentially the same as F, except it includes a surface scan where it'll actually label sectors bad if for whatever reason they find that they're bad. However, I have found from in this instance, the /R doesn't help increase your success when it comes to using check disk. So /F usually is perfect for me. I haven't had a situation where I've needed /R, but if you have a really damaged drive or even a spinning disk from years back, then /R might be a good idea. But for an SSD, nah, I would just use /F. But once that's done, now we're going to try to use the system file checker. And there's a couple different ways that we can use this. So go ahead and follow this really closely. First time is we're just going to run SFC straight up. So we're going to go SFC space /scan now. Now you don't want to stop here. A lot of people will stop at scan now, but if you do that, it's going to check the recovery console system files, and that's not going to really help you. We want to actually check the system files for the offline operating system, which is Windows that you're trying to get back into. And to do that, we're going to go /off boot dir directory equals C drive / space, and then we're going to go / again. We're going to go off win dir directory equals C : /Windows. And then once we do that, what it's going to tell us is we're going to run the system file checker. We're going to have it scan now on the offline boot drive C and the offline Windows directory C : Windows. And then once we do that, we're going to go ahead and enter. We're going to go ahead and let the system file checker do its thing. It's going to take a minute for this to work, but once it does, you're either going to get a nothing was found, something was found and we fixed it, or something was found and we couldn't fix it. And depending on what the response is, will be what happens next. But it's going to take a while for it to get through this process, so I'm going to go ahead and let it finish it, and I will meet you back here once it's done. All right, so now we're back. As you can see, it says Windows Resource Protection did not find any integrity violations. Well, this is good news, but it's actually not good news because that means that's not what's stopping us from booting Windows. However, it's going to come back a couple different ways for you. It's either going to say that it did find problems and it fixed them, and if that's the case, then great, you might actually have a functioning system again. Or it might also come back with saying that it found problems and it couldn't fix them. Well, that doesn't really help much. So let me show you how you can fix that problem if it happens. So essentially all you're going to do is you're going to run the command dism space, then we're going to go /image : C : / space again, then we're going to go /cleanup image. So that's going to be cleanup dash, oh, we have to spell it right here, cleanup dash, no, clean up dash image space / restore health. And apparently for some reason I can't spell today. So essentially I'm going to put it up on the screen right now, the correct spelling of course of what we're going to run. And essentially what this command is doing is dism is going to take the image is your C drive, which is your boot drive, and it's going to clean up the install image that it uses to do the system file check. Because essentially the way the system file check works is it compares known good copies of Windows system files with the copies that are currently in use. Well, if there's a problem with where it gets those known good copies, then it's going to have a problem fixing the ones that are bad. So what you're doing here is you're actually going to fix that image so that it can use SFC on a clean image. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter, let SFC run. Now it might give you an error about a scratch directory. Sometimes you may have to create one, sometimes you don't. In this case, I don't think I'm going to have to create one, but we're going to find out in a minute. So it's going to go through the process of cleaning up the image so that we can run SFC. So it's going to take a second to do that. So while it's working on it, I'm going to go ahead and meet you once it's done. Okay, so there it goes. It completed successfully. So now you can't just stop here. So if you had problems running SFC before, once you run DISM, you have to go ahead and run SFC again. So to do that, I would just hit the up arrow until you get to your SFC command, then go ahead and hit enter and run SFC again in order to continue or to redo what it did before. But however, as we know, is mine did not find any integrity violations. So that's clearly not our problem. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to move on to the next step. Now, at this point, you're starting to run out of troubleshooting steps to get back into Windows. But there is one more thing that you can try. And there's a reason I left this one as the very last one. And that's because if this next option doesn't work, you will lose access to Windows recovery. That's why it's best to try everything we did first on this list before you try this next procedure. So one thing I would recommend doing is creating a Windows install USB on another system, because you can always use the install USB to boot into recovery, and it's getting real close to the point where you actually might need that USB to reinstall Windows. So with that said, let's jump back on the system and I'll show you how to rebuild the Windows bootloader. Let's get to it. Okay, so we're right here at the command prompt. Now, if you've tried to restart your system in order to see if what the different SFC commands did work, then you're probably not gonna be at this screen. You're gonna be at this one right here. But same process, go ahead and hit troubleshooting, advanced options, and then open up your command prompt. And it's probably nice to get a clean command prompt anyway for this. So what we're gonna be doing is we're essentially going to be destroying the current bootloader in Windows and rebuilding it from scratch. And the reason why we're doing this is we're hoping that the problem with our boot isn't Windows itself, but it's rather the bootloader that's causing the problem. Believe it or not, I've actually had this procedure work more than once to fix systems that were in automatic repair loops. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to run diskpart. Then from diskpart, once it opens up, go ahead and type list disk, and that's going to tell you what disks you have on your computer. Now, right now, you should only have your boot drive. This is one of the troubleshooting steps that you should have taken earlier, is to unplug all unnecessary devices, and that would include hard drives or secondary hard drives. As long as they don't have data on them that's important to boot, like your program files or your user files, then you can go ahead and disconnect them if they're just data drives. But now we only have one. I'm going to go ahead and hit select SEL disk 0. That's going to select our first disk. You can actually go list disk again if you want to verify, and you can see that little star right behind it tells you that that disk is selected. And then from here, we're going to go list volume, and then it's going to tell us all of our volumes. We have volume 0, 1, and 2. Now we're going to want to look for the FAT32 volume, and it's going to be about 100 megabytes. It's going to be a tiny little volume, and it's also not going to have a drive letter. As you can see here, I've got 3 volumes. The C is obviously, this is my main hard drive. It's 953 gigabytes. It's huge, and that's where all of my data is stored. Volume 1 is my boot partition, and this is the one that we're actually interested in right now. And then volume number 2 is our D drive, and this is going to be our recovery partition. This is Windows recovery, what we are currently in right now. But unfortunately, what we're about to do is going to render that one pretty much useless. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to select SEL volume, and in this case, it's going to be volume 1. So we're going to go ahead and hit volume 1 and hit enter, and then go ahead and hit list volume again, just to double check that you're highlighted on volume 1. And as you can see, the star is right there on volume 1. And then we're going to go assign letter equals V. Now you can decide any letter you want, but just keep in mind that the following instructions are going to be based on the fact that this drive is going to have the drive letter V. And if you hit list volume again, you'll see that we now have a drive letter V. You can do, like I said, whatever letter you want, but just make sure to correct it in the instructions that come next. So from this point, we're going to exit out of diskpart, and we're going to go back to our drive. And then we're going to do the unthinkable. We're going to format our V drive, which is our boot drive. And we're going to format it with the file system. It's going to be fs:/fat 32. And then once we hit enter, we hit yes, there's no going back. We have now formatted our boot drive. The system will literally not boot at all at this point. But that's okay, because the next command will fix it and cause it to boot again. That's going to be bcd boot space c prompt colon or backslash c colon backslash Windows space /s space v, so we're telling it to write our bootloader to v, space /f, and then it's going to be UEFI, and then hit enter, and it should say boot file successfully created. Now at this point, we have just now fixed the boot partition. So let me tell you exactly how this command works. So bcd boot is just the command to fix the BCD for the system. We're going to tell it that we want our Windows system, the C:// Windows, to boot /s from the V drive. The V drive is going to be the boot partition that boots this directory right here. And then we're telling it we're setting it up as a UEFI boot partition. So it's a fairly simple command and it should work. I've had very little times. In fact, now that I think about it, I can't think of a single time that this command has ever failed. As long as you run it on a system that has a legitimate operating system on it, it should work without problem. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and run diskpart again. Then from diskpart, we're going to hit list volumes, and we can see our V volume right there. We're going to go ahead and hit select volume V. And then when we list the volume, as you can see, we got the little star right next to volume 1. We're going to hit remove letter equals V, and this will remove the drive letter. You can hit list volume again just to verify that it's been removed. Then we can hit exit. And then at this point, well, we have to boot the system and see if maybe Windows works now. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. We're going to hit continue to Windows. Actually, we're going to turn off the PC and we're going to try it that way. So here we go. We hit the power button and we should see Windows at some point. Keep your fingers crossed or don't, because I already know it's going to work because I wrote the video. But either way, it may or may not work for you. And if it doesn't work, then that's where you kind of run into a few other problems. But either way, at this point, you won't be able to boot into recovery. So if this fix fails to fix your booting problem, then it'll definitely stop the automatic repair loop. But it'll only stop it because it'll stop at a blue screen instead. But sometimes that's actually a good thing, because now that you've broken the automatic repair loop chain, you can actually see the blue screen that's causing the problem in the first place. This should give you a stop error that you can do research on to further troubleshoot the problem. However, from what I've found, if you don't have Windows booting after going through all of these steps, then there's a very high likelihood that you're going to have to reload Windows. At this point, I would just use a live USB like Hiren's boot CD to back up your data and then reload Windows. Unfortunately, since most people don't have access to System Restore anymore and Microsoft took away the registry backup, it's getting harder and harder to fix these kinds of problems. But if following these steps, you are able to boot back into Windows, then the very first thing that I would recommend doing is a repair install. Not only will a repair install replace Windows system files, but it will also fix the recovery partition that you just nuked in the last step. And whether or not you had to reload Windows or not, you should enable System Restore, just in case something like this happens again. And I show you how to do that in this video right here, as well as show you how to change other settings that are probably a good idea to change in Windows 11. But as always, you guys have a great day.